and welcome to this lesson on algebraic notation. The essential question we have to answer here is how do we understand and analyze chess games in order to have success in tournaments? The answer is that we have to be able to notate and interpret algebraic notations to read and analyze those games. So, to begin, on the screen, I'm going to have a chessboard on my left side, and all the notes are on the right side here. So, to begin with the introduction, the chessboard has 64 squares in total. It's an 8x8 board. And each row, for example, each row here, is denoted by a number from 1 through 8. And each column is denoted by a letter from A through H, as you can see here on the board. The coordinate for a square is written by adding its letter with its number. So, for example, the highlighted square here on the board is on column E and row 4. So its coordinate is E4. Another example is, let's say, the square. It's on column G and row 7. So its square is G7. So in the language we use in chess, the rows are called ranks and the columns are called files. So for example, the fourth row will be called the fourth rank and the H column will be called the H file. In the starting position, all of the white pieces are placed on the first and second ranks, which is the first and second rows. And all the black pieces are placed on the 7th and 8th ranks. The pawns are placed on the second rank for white and the 7th rank for black. For example, the white pawns are placed on A2, B2, C2, and all the way to H2. And the black pawns are placed on A7, B7, C7, and all the way to H7. The larger pieces, such as the queen, the king, the bishop, the knight, the rook, are all placed on the 1st and the 8th ranks. For example, the white king is located on E1. Remember, column E, the E file, and the first rank, so E1. And the black queen is located on D8. See, D8, so D8. So this brings us to our first quiz of the lesson. What square is the black bishop on? The white rook. The answers are in the next chapter, so if you would like to pause this video and figure it out for yourself, please do so. Okay, so the black bishop is on the C file, and also the 8th rank. So its coordinate will be C8. The white rook is on the H file, and the first rank. So its coordinate will be H1. Next, we're going to talk about piece moves. So each piece, excluding pawns, has its own prefix, which is a letter we put in front of the piece move when notating piece moves. So the K stands for king, and Q stands for queen. So most of these will make sense. It's the first letter of the piece name. So R stands for rook, B stands for bishop, and N stands for knight, because the K is already taken by the king. So we have to use N for the knight. We describe a piece move by adding the prefix in front of the square where the piece wants to go. For example, the highlighted move will be notated as. So the knight wants to go to F3. So the move will be N F3, because N is the prefix for the knight, and the square the knight wants to go to is F3. So we have this complicated diagram here. The rook wants to move from H2, where it currently is on, to the following squares. And in this example, the king wants to oscillate or move between E8 and D8. So the rook first wants to move to h7, and because the prefix for the rook is r, the first move will be rh7. The king wants to move to d8, and the prefix for the king is k, so the next move will be notated as k d8. The rook now wants to move to a7, and because the prefix for the rook is r, the move will be notated as ra7. The king wants to move to e8 now, so because the prefix for the king is k, it will be k e8. And now the rook wants to move to a1, and because the prefix for the rook is r, it will be ra1. And the king wants to move back to d8 in this example, so it will be k d8, since the prefix for the king is k. And finally, the rook wants to move to c1, and because the prefix for the rook is r, it will be rc1. I hope this improves your understanding a bit of the piece moves. Which brings us to our quiz. Number 2. So the bishop wants to move to the highlighted square to attack the rook, because as you can see, if it moves here and the bishop moves diagonally, it will attack the rook. So how will this move be notated? Please pause the video and see if you can figure it out by yourself. So this move will be notated as b c6, because this square the bishop wants to move to is c6, and the bishop's prefix is b, so it will be bc6. So pawn moves are unique, but they're not too difficult to understand. Pawns lack a prefix because there's just too many of them, and a lot of the same pawns can go to the same squares. So this is why pawns don't have a prefix. So because they lack a prefix, the highlighted move will just be notated as e4. Since there is no prefix in front of the square the pawn is moving to, we only write pawn moves as a square the pawn is moving to. For example, black can respond to this move by moving his e-pawn 2 spaces forward to e5, which will be notated as just e5. Let's say white wants to put another pawn into the center. This time he'll move his d-pawn to d4, so this move will just be notated as d4. And black might want to defend his pawn by pushing his d-pawn 1 square forward to d6, and this will be notated as just d6. So after a few of these moves, I think you've got the hang of these pawn moves, so let's review it using a quiz. So it's white's turn to move. Both white and black have a pawn, and white must win this endgame. What's white's winning move, and how will this be notated? So white's winning move is a4. This is the only way the pawn can get to the promotion square first, and block black's pawn from promoting by promoting into a queen. So a4, and then h5, because black wants to move his pawn to h5. And then we want to move our pawn to a5, so this will be notated as a5. And then h4, a6, h3, a7, h2, and now white promotes to a queen on a8. And this promotion notation we'll review in a later chapter. And now white wins the pawn race because he controls the diagonal, preventing black from promoting.